Adopt Technologies' The Elephant in the Room podcast brings you gigantic tech stories that inspire. These are creators, innovators, and change makers. Every episode, our guests embody one of the core values that makes Adopt so different from every other tech company. Much like an elephant, guests on this show are emotionally intelligent and ready to make a gigantic impact on the world. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Pena, and this is the Adopt Technologies Elephant in the Room podcast. I am so pleased to welcome from Florida, Dasha Tyshlek, who is the Director of Business Development for MicroAnt. Dasha, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have a fascinating story. I guess the best place to begin, though, is explaining to the audience what MicroAnt is.
Yeah, so antennas are everywhere, and we design antennas in the microwave frequency spectrum. What that means to the regular person out there is anytime you have a wireless communication link, you have to have an antenna on one side transmitting and on the other side receiving. Now, there's lots of different types of antennas out there. Your computer mouse, if it's a Bluetooth mouse, is connected through an antenna to the computer, but the distance of the communication link is maybe a foot to 2 feet maximum. And the mouse is relatively large in size, and you don't really have to design anything particularly special for that communication link. But if you're communicating to the satellites up in the sky in the middle of the polar regions of the Earth, or maybe you want an antenna that stays connected in both urban and rural environments as you drive cross-country in a truck, that requires significant amount of understanding of how to design good antennas. And each of those antennas will be custom. So what we do is we design the custom antenna part of the technology, and then we manufacture it here in Jacksonville.
How did you get into that line of work?
Yeah, so when I was in engineering school, I quickly realized that I loved project-related work and that I really was drawn to hardware, things that were physical in nature and complex. And I really enjoyed the manufacturing process. I went on a couple kind of factory tours, and every time I was in a manufacturing facility, I felt exhilarated and excited by the kind of work that went on, and both the technology that was being created, but what was actually required to produce that technology in large scale. So when I graduated college, I spent some time doing management and type training programs and strategic planning. But my heart was in physical product, and I wanted it to be something that really improved the world. So I got to meet actually the daughter of our company's CEO through an alumni event. And I described to her, I said, I love the strategy and planning process I'm doing at my current company, but I'm not talking to the customer. I'm not handling any kind of product. I'm not in a manufacturing environment. There's not really any technology that I'm touching as a part of my job. And what I'm looking for, and I described to her my ideal job, and she said, my father is looking for somebody just like that for his company. And at MicroAnt, we understand that for the most part, people aren't even exposed to what an antenna is in engineering school. So we're not looking for people to join our team who know everything about antennas. Our chief science officer has a process to introduce people to the technology and teach everybody, both in management level positions as well as mechanical engineers, about the technology. And the only people we really look for with a background in antennas are the antenna engineers. So everybody else is coming from somewhere else and learning about this field and this technology once they're here.
Dasha, can you tell us a little bit about your background? And I understand that you are always very inspired and encouraged by your mom.
Yes, my mom is just an incredible human being because she's really intelligent and really hardworking, but she's also really kind and nurturing of people. She's always trying to help people be their best selves, get more skills. And she's also a person who's always upped her skill level. And when I was in high school, my mom was getting an MBA, And oh yeah, I had siblings. We had a dog. She had the household to run, and she was working part-time. So this wasn't an easy thing for her to do, but she really wanted to have an American-based education because her education was completed in the Soviet Union and Ukraine. And so she worked really hard, and I really, she'd bring back all these interesting ideas to the dinner table, from how to manage people to different financial structures. And so we'd have always these cool discussions about things she was learning in college. And it really made me want to be a learner and a person who's always upping my skills and my understanding of how the world works. Because it was just always such a great conversation topic and created so much excitement in the house.
I read a quote. I was reading some notes that were sent to me by the producer. And one of the notes that was sent along from you is a quote that says, "Be so good, they can't ignore you." What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think there's many different ways to get frustrated, right? And I think sometimes people get frustrated because you might be working on something for a long time and you might feel like you're not making progress, and or the impact isn't as fast, or the rewards don't come as quickly as you would have anticipated. And I think focusing on being really good is very important to me. I think if you focus on excellent process, excellent people relationships, being excellent in the thing that you're doing, learning more, improving yourself every day, the rewards are going to be there. And ultimately, it won't be ignored by the world. And I don't mean just people. I mean, there's kind of things materialize when you invest into being a better person. And so I thought it was a great quote because it doesn't say be so smart. It says be so good. And good is holistic.
It's interesting that you bring up the concept of striving to be excellent. I've had a conversation recently with a filmmaker friend of mine. She did a documentary about a famous chef, and she talks about the difference between trying to be perfect and just striving to be excellent in what you do in your day-to-day life. What is the difference to you? As a woman entrepreneur in the tech field, there's a difference between I want to be perfect and I want to be excellent in what I'm doing, and I want to try to learn and push myself to learn the most that I can every single day.
Yeah, to me, perfection is both. It's kind of like can come from a place of judgment, and it sounds like something kind of permanent. Like once it's achieved, it's there. But I think excellence is just constant improvement. You understand inherently that excellence is a moving target. It doesn't necessarily bring a level of judgment with it either. If it's when you say something is not perfect, it's kind of judgmental, and it kind of hurts you to think, oh, I'm not perfect. I think something being good versus excellent, we don't get that same internal reaction to it. We just say, oh, it could be better to be excellent. And that's kind of that mentality of you can always be progressing at your own pace. You can always be looking forward, and you don't have to be judgmental to yourself. You can be doing it from a place of positivity, just envisioning a better future, a better set of goals, a better set of values even that you're kind of moving yourself towards regularly, and not be thinking in terms of, oh, it's not perfect, so it's not good enough. No, it's just we're always evolving towards kind of better.
I love that so much. And I would love to hear from you what you consider to be one of your biggest challenges that you've faced. You're in the tech industry. You are a rising star. Of course, a woman in sometimes what has been considered a man's world. What do you feel has been the biggest challenge that you've faced?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I face is that I work at a small, highly innovative company that, we have recently started to branch out and do our marketing and branding. But working in a small, highly complex company in an industry primarily dominated by, elephants in the room, gigantic companies with revenues bigger than most American states dominate our industry. And we are less than 100 people strong, and we are constantly creating technologies that are really highly coveted. and protecting the company, protecting my team, our relationships in an environment where we are seen as being, important and valuable, but not a threat, and not somebody that you have to necessarily be afraid of being able to challenge you in court for IP related issues or over contracts. I think for me to take on the role of leading business development, that's the biggest challenge: is how do I protect the team and the company? How do you navigate people who might have been able to push around other companies before? And to me, it's less about the woman-man dominated dynamic. For me, what I feel on a daily basis is the big company versus small company dynamic, the kind of bureaucratic, let's call it entrenched mentalities, long processes, things that are bogged down with contracts, versus us trying to be agile, people-oriented, deeply honest and full of integrity, and trying to navigate those dynamics. That, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I understand that you and your team have really revolutionized your work by adopting some new mindsets, and this in particular, how you manage your clients, how you interact with your team. Tell us a little bit about that culture that you're working to create.
Yeah, I think, to create really excellent technologies, and for us, we're really bounded by physics, and there's a lot of rigor that has to go into validating whether what we invented actually works, because you can't see it, you have to test it. You can't see the electromagnetic waves. You can't sometimes even measure it directly. You have to have computational math to prove that what you've measured has sort of correlates to the reality. And so we have to be really structured and rigorous in our processes, but we can't let that prevent us from being innovative. And those two things are often at odds with each other. So I think the way that we make up for it is we have we have a lot of structure to how we move from one phase of the project, how we engage with the customer. But we really focus on relationship building internally and externally. And we really focus on making sure our work environment is really accepting and fun for everybody. And we create opportunities for people to mesh and mingle. And just as a great example, our company has people who are engineers, who are experts and in deep areas, right? So they know stuff that it's hard for them to describe what they know to almost anybody else in the company, except for maybe the one other engineer who is an expert in that same field. And then we also have people who are on the assembly line, manufacturing, who are part of the production team. And we don't want the fact that this is, that people don't share a language to prevent them from being able to make friendships and have a really good time together. So we have a couple things we've done as a team. One, our founder leads a class for everybody at different levels, so that everybody who comes in, who's working with us for some time, gets to go through the class and learn about antennas so that they can talk, at least at the level of being able to identify what the product is, explain how it works. If a customer was on a tour and asked about the product, they'd be able to explain what they're doing, how it relates to the quality. So people can really connect despite these extreme areas of expertise where, even we've had engineers who are just experts in an area, and they even can't talk to other engineers about their area of expertise because they have completely different language and completely different depth of knowledge about different things. And then we have a company cafe, and we embody the servant leadership concept there, because everybody on our leadership team has been trained on how to make lattes and serve that to the team. And sometimes we'll have an uptick in production and we can't have anybody at the cafe permanently. So I might go and do some dishes. Our chief operating officer might come out and mop up the floor and dump the water out. And our president and CEO might be standing there making lattes for the team during the break, so that everybody feels that they really are part of the family, and that we have good communication and problems that are being surfaced early, and people feel comfortable with each other.
That kind of connection is so powerful. I just saw a video, in fact, I think yesterday, Jennifer Aniston was on the set of her show that she does with Reese Witherspoon, and she was serving at their craft food service, and all the crew was coming up, and she was serving, and it was just a fun moment. But that goes to what you're saying. It's just that connection. It's not just us over here and them over here. What you're talking about is bringing people together on a base level to connect as human beings. I love that. I think it's so brilliant, and it really does help advance a company culture. Talk a little bit about the technology that you're most excited about, that you would like the audience to know about, maybe what's to come.
Oh, that's probably the toughest question you asked me so far, because there's so many great technologies that we work on. But here's something that I think could have tremendous impact, and it's not new, but we're doing it differently. So we have a technology that we've been manufacturing actually for 15 years, and it's called Precision GPS/GNSS antenna. What it does is it uses multiple positioning satellite constellations to be able to operate globally and position the location of the device precisely down to centimeter, and if two of these devices are used in the right system, down to millimeter level accuracy. These are usually being employed in agriculture for being able to have kind of navigation systems that know the fields and where each plant is. They're used in mining and other safety services, as well as for surveying. And for a really long time, we've only provided this technology to a single supplier. And this was really good because it meshed well with their technology. But ultimately, there were markets where, through the combination of, we provided to the supplier, they provided to a distributor, then it gets shipped overseas, then there's a tariff, then there's a distributor, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes the cost of these systems was becoming very high unnecessarily, just because of the amount of hands it would exchange. And this technology is not that expensive, relatively speaking, for us to manufacture. So what we've decided to do is to start selling that technology, since it's an off-the-shelf standard product, to farmers and small organizations that do farming, mining, construction directly through a new website. So that, especially in areas where there's an export, like possibly Brazil, where this technology would end up being exorbitant and inaccessible to a medium or small size farmer, now they can buy it directly at a significantly reduced cost. Now, this technology has transformed the world, right? You and I can talk about the impact of you and me recycling all day long, but a single deployment of this system on a large farm can reduce fertilizer and pesticide use by up to 30% on an entire farm, because instead of spraying the whole field, you're now just watering pesticide application just on the plant, just on the row where that plant is located. And you can also use your agricultural space more efficiently. And this means less deforestation, right? You're using the same space you've already had. And it's advantageous because people would rather do more with what they have than have to do all the extra work to cultivate more land. So in terms of gains in environmental improvements and cost reduction efforts globally for food production, this technology has already had a tremendous impact. But like I said, it's been inaccessible for kind of smaller farms. For anybody who's buying used equipment, replacing a system like this would be multiple thousands of dollars. Versus buying directly from us, they might be able to get it for sub $1,000 each.
What is the importance for you of not only bringing this type of technology to the forefront, but also supporting small and mid-sized farmers who are being driven out of business, all the time, every day? And it's really heartbreaking when you hear those stories.
Yeah, I really believe that people being able to access land, live off the land, make a living off the land is very important for humanity in general. And I'm personally a gardener, avid gardener. My family has always had some sort of garden, whether it's a strawberry patch or right now my grandparents and my parents have a full-on garden with a mini vineyard and some fruits just in the backyard of the house. And to think that there's people out there who are kind of passionate about that and they want to provide us with high quality food, but they're competing against companies that have the ability to invest millions of dollars into these technologies, and they don't have necessarily technologies available to them that would be as affordable, right? And not because the technology isn't affordable necessarily, but potentially because just the supply chain process of getting the technology into their hands is unaffordable.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, this is like, hey, the technology is there and it's affordable. So if we can find a way to connect directly, then we're solving that problem for the medium, and they can keep their farms, they can improve and compete with efficiencies that larger scale farms have, but on smaller scale farms, which are probably more likely to be producing organic food or things that are native to the area and supplying directly and close by for local markets and local grocery stores.
I love it. It's so beautiful. Your mission and the way you speak about it is really beautiful and so heart-centric. Just a few more questions for you before we let you go. I know how busy you are, but I understand you're not only are you a gardener, but you're also an artist, which I find fascinating because here you have this engineering, scientific brain. So what does it do for you to be able to also have these other artistic outlets?
Yeah, the art side of my hobbies it's been really important to me throughout my life, because I think early on in art training, I learned a lot about, well, actually what we talked about earlier, the difference between perfection and excellence. Because as a student artist, you're often drawing something from life or a photograph, and you're trying to achieve realism. And there's a really big difference between excellence and perfection. The perfection is completely unachievable. You know, even with the most photorealistic painter, are they able to perfectly capture the world? Absolutely not. You're actually ever only capturing a snippet and not the whole thing. So early on, I think it taught me to actually understand that concept more deeply, that I could be in a critical state comparing my work to kind of the perfection, as you might call it, of the thing in front of me. And then at some point, I have to understand that I'm not ever going to be able to achieve that. Even a photograph can't achieve perfection of the object itself. So what am I going to do to make it excellent, but also to be able to stop and evaluate my work with a positive mindset? And that was a really important lesson I learned early. Later in my life, art was a really good outlet for dealing with grief and tragedy and certain things that occurred. And I found that through art, I could kind of find my way back into normalcy and overcoming certain kind of thoughts and kind of expressing things that were bottled up or felt, like they needed to be expressed in a positive way. And then more recently, I had a goal to become more patient with people, with myself, with things not working out. I'm a kind of a go, go, go person, but to be a good manager and a leader, you also have to nurture and mentor and coach, and sometimes be okay with priority shifting. And for me, art became an area where I could develop that, because I could take on projects that required me to practice patience and detail orientation and things that took way longer than I expected. And for me to enjoy that process first through art, and then to be able to translate that into my work life and personal life as well. So I use it to kind of focus on other skills in my life as well.
And being a well-rounded human being. That is so important. As we close out, I would just want to ask you, you talked early on about your mom and how important, I'm sure both your parents, what they had to overcome in their lives. And you touched on the fact that you had to deal with some significant trauma. How does your mom feel about where you are today? She has to be so proud of you and all that you've been able to accomplish, and that you consider her to be your role model.
Absolutely. I think she's definitely proud of me, but she also continues to inspire me, because Even though I've, achieved certain things, I see that my mom has developed qualities of wisdom and kindness that extend far beyond my own qualities in that realm. So I continue to look up to her in many different areas of personal development, as well as relationship building and different values that she's grown in continuously to continue inspiring me every day.
Dasha, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it. Your interview is just beautiful. You have so much insight. And for folks who might be listening or watching, where can they find out more about the work you all are doing?
For microant and the custom antennas that we're working on, you can go to micro-ant.com. And for the new GPS product, the direct-to-consumer precision GPS, you can go to micro-antgps.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn.
I did look you up on LinkedIn, and you have a great page. Dasha, thank you so much. We wish you much success, and we appreciate you joining us here for the Elephant in the Room podcast, brought to you by Adopt Technologies. I'm Carrie Pena. Take care, everyone. Now it's time for What We Heard with Brett Helgeson, the CEO of Adopt Technologies, the sponsor of this podcast. Always love having you in studio to break down the interview and tell us what inspired you most. Dasha's pretty incredible, as are all the guests. What was your takeaway?
Yep, she is. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be in here. The biggest thing I think with Dasha was the fact that when she talks about investing in yourself and ultimately how many wonderful things can come as a result of investing in yourself, especially in today's day and age. It's so common that people look outward, and try to cast blame on others and things of that nature. But when you're really intentional about making yourself a better professional person and focusing on that, she is so accurate that so many positive things come as a result of that.
How have you tried to encourage your employees? You have a growing technology company that's booming. I know that the culture inside your company is extremely important to you. So how do you try to reinforce that with your team?
I think the biggest thing is because we want to see people succeed both personally and professionally. And in order to succeed personally and hit a lot of the objectives and goals that they want to accomplish for themselves and their family, they need to succeed professionally. So because of that, in order to succeed professionally, just investing in themselves, continuous training, education, opportunity to get exposure to things they may not have previously had an opportunity to get exposed to.
Yeah.
So mentorship, coaching, all of those things are really critical in the evolution of a young professional or an older professional for that matter, right? We all learn something new every day.
And we're always evolving.
Yep.
Before I let you go, anytime I get a high-level CEO like yourself over here, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, when you invest in your employees as human beings, like you said, that they can develop and you care about that, how does that pay off for you as a leader?
Beyond the fact that it is extremely rewarding to see people accomplish things and you see them be happy and they really love their role, it just is incredible at how it helps with talent retention. And in a market like we have right now, we love it when people say, there is nothing that could get me to leave Adopt Technologies. You always have to solve for the basics, right? The financial pieces and things of that nature and be competitive. But through survey after survey, you see that those are not the top 3 reasons why people stay at companies.
Yes.
It's not the money. It's the other things. It's
Yes.
feeling empowered. It's feeling invested in. It's feeling like they have a voice. It's the culture.
If someone's watching or listening to this show and says, hey, I want to find out more about maybe working with Adopt Technologies, I know you're always recruiting talent.
We are, yeah. And our website, we try to post things on LinkedIn all the time, but our website also has a career page and we'll always have the job postings there that we're currently seeking. But even if we don't have a job opening available, we love to hear from great talent. So I would say go ahead and submit regardless.
You have one of the best websites too. Just your imagery on your website, everything you guys are doing. I love it so much. Thank you so much, Brett, for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. Elephant in the Room. I'm Carrie Pena.